Let's go to Sean Reynolds now, who the last time we saw him, I guess, live, he was punching me in the back in Montreal. And here he is now from the Manitoba capital. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great. I get a little excited when I see you, Rod. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know I quite punched you in the back. I thought it was a healthy slap on the back. But like you, and I love to see you. So that was my excitement showing.
I loved it. I think it was surprise more than anything. But, you know, what a fortuitous bounce this is that Neal Pionk would sign a 4-year deal with the Jets today, and then you would come on the same day. $5.8 million per season. Seems like a pretty good deal for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, and I was going to say, what do you know, Rod? Because you had called yesterday and said you want to come on the show, and I was thinking, what are we going to talk about Jets and this? Then this happened. So I want to know what your sources were telling you that they had you set up and ready to go for this. But I think this is a real good value signing for the Jets, as I think you can just play that on a never-ending track. Kevin Cheveldayoff and his ability to get his players under contract. Keep them around, especially the ones that are under team control for a while. He's done a phenomenal job with them. I think a lot of us expected that this deal to be in the neighborhood of what Josh Morrissey was making, which is over $6 million. He gets him for under that number. Neal Pionk has come in, and as you were talking about, a bit of a surprise, but has really, filled the void left behind with the loss of Jacob Trouba. And Ville Heinola, his career hasn't even started yet. And I think, if you talk to Jets fans, and probably people in the Jets organization, he may be the prospect that people are about. So that Trouba trade has really turned into something for the Winnipeg Jets. But, Neal Pionk, 20th highest scoring defenseman in the league, has shown to be really, really great defensively, has this, kind of physical edge that no one would expect from a guy his size. And yet the Jets get him locked in for 4 years as the third highest on the team. Kevin Cheveldayoff, absolutely magic when it comes to contract negotiations and the people that he has years of control over. And this is just the latest in that long book of evidence.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that is I Googled Pionk trade, and what came up was June 17th, 2019 from Sportsnet. And the sentence was that opened it. The New York Rangers sped up their rebuilding effort Monday by acquiring offensive-minded defenseman Jacob Trouba from the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm like, that was 2 years ago. They sped up their rebuilding effort, the New York Rangers. They haven't made the playoffs since. So let's look at it from their perspective. Would they do that trade again? Probably not.
Well, and you got to think of how much they signed Jacob Trouba. If you were to talk to them, I'm sure they'd tell you that they were very happy with him and they believe he's going to be an impact player for a number of years. You got to give scouts credit. We've talked with them in the past. They saw Neal Pionk playing. Had interest in him, I think, before he entered the league, liked what they saw from him. It's an example in quite a lot of cases what you'll find with the Winnipeg Jets. You got to give credit, not only to their scouts for going out and finding the players that they think will fit well, but for, the coaching staff and Paul Maurice here in Winnipeg for kind of, once they do get those players, finding, maybe the best version. And there's been conversations in the past about Neal Pionk coming here and getting to high-end talent, the Mark Scheifele's, the Nick Ehlers, Patrick Laine while he was here, Blake Wheeler, those kind of players. And, getting the puck to those guys, and then Nick Ehlers goes down and does what Nick Ehlers can do, puts the puck in the net, and how much that builds your confidence. And, a lot of it just has to do with the fact that suddenly you're showing up on the score sheet when you're just doing your regular job and moving the puck up ice because you're moving it to skilled forwards who can do something with it. It's a confidence builder. Pionk has talked about that in the past. He's been feeling it since he got to Winnipeg, and clearly they're feeling it back. And Rod, the biggest part about this is they get him locked up for 4 years, and you'll see with the Winnipeg Jets now, the window is clear. In 3 years from now, Blake Wheeler's contract expires, Mark Scheifele's contract expires, Connor Hellebuck's contract expires. That's the window. And there was a problem in the years past. They didn't have, as strong a defense would have needed to be contending for a championship. They go out, Schmidt, they get Brendan Dillon. They've addressed that, they feel. And all these players, Brendan Dillon, Nate Schmidt, Josh Morris, Pionk, Adam Lowry, on and on, up and down, their core is locked up to a 3 to 4 year window. So this is really Kevin Cheveldayoff saying, I believe in this team. I believe this is a championship caliber team. They've got cost certainty going forward with only Andrew Kopp left to kind of lock up here. But this is it. This is the Winnipeg Jets play and them putting both feet forward and saying, we think this is a championship caliber roster. It's up to the players now to go out and prove that.
It's interesting that you say that, and I love the positivity. And by the way, we are coming to Winnipeg Friday for a live show from Canada Life Centre in advance of the Bombers and the Argos. I cannot wait to be in your town here in a couple of days for that. But the comments are coming in from the viewers on who the Jets have lost. So when you said, what are we going to talk about? We can just look back at July and say they lost Laurent Brossoit, backup goalie in free agency, to Vegas. They lost Mason Ambleton in the expansion draft, which people seem very upset about. And I'm telling Winnipeggers, because they're writing me a lot, I'm like, if you're upset that you're losing somebody, that's a good thing. It means you got a wealth of talent there, which they do. But can you go over those two losses and any others that that they did lose and how they'll overcome them?
Well, so I'm glad that the viewers brought that up, because they're picking up on what I think a lot of people may have missed. Yes, there's that the Jets have addressed their defense, and yes, there's been a belief that there's been this gaping hole in their lineup that's kept them from succeeding since they had that phenomenal defense core that had Dustin Byfuglien and Tyler Myers and Jacob Trouba. Once they tore that down, there really was this gaping hole, and they feel that they've addressed that. They've got size and, grit and toughness and a little bit of a mean streak with Brendan Dillon, and Nate Schmidt can move the puck and he can play, above his size. So for a lot of people, the feeling was they locked that in, and now here it is. The biggest problem is solved, and it is, the holes are plugged, and this team is ready to go on and contend for a championship. There's a fly in that ointment, and it's the players that your viewers are bringing up, and Mason Appletons, and even the fourth line. Now they've got players who are going to come and spell that off. I mean, Gustafsson is coming up; he's ready to come and start anchoring that fourth line, and guys like Jensen Harkins can move in, and Christian Vesalainen can move in. But if we've seen anything, and you were there, right? You were in Montreal during the Stanley Cup final. In order to get to where they got to, and the Tampa Bay Lightning win the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, the Montreal Canadiens get there, there's ridiculous depth right up and down that lineup. Great goaltending, which the Jets have. Phenomenal defense, which the Jets probably don't have on par with those two teams, even though they like what they've done here. High-end skill, which the Jets probably are one of the better teams in the league when it comes to that. But those third and fourth lines really did make those teams. I mean, like what Coleman and Goudreau were able to do for Tampa. And I mean, that fourth line for, the Corey Perrys and Stalls and Joel Armias, those are the guys that got those teams to where they were ridiculous depth. And the Jets are going to be going into this year, it looks like, because there's not a lot of money left, especially if they re-sign Andrew Kopp, with change on 4 of those bottom 6 positions. And, to me, that's the one thing, is the way they've spent their money here. I like the idea that it's cost certainty. It can be hard to get guys to Winnipeg. Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't really going to have to worry about that now, because he's got the guys here and he's locked them in. But there's not a lot of ability now, if you're going to sign Andrew Kopp and if you're going to sign him long term, to have space to spend money at bottom 6 the way other teams have. And I don't necessarily think that Winnipeg is that team that the Corey Perrys of the world come to and say, I'll take a league minimum to come here, because there's too many other teams who are succeeding, and have, maybe people perceive it to have a better lifestyle than you have in Winnipeg. So I do think that if there's an area for the Jets to falter this year, it's the fact that they're probably going to be bringing in 4 really young players to plug those holes, which we see are really important holes in the playoffs. And while they're all in on this window, and they need to be, because like I said, the next 3 years, the potential of losing 3 of their top players, the core players on this team. If you lose a year or a year and a half to that, to young players who are learning on the fly, it's a risk. And spending their money right up to the cap that the Winnipeg Jets have to lock in on a core that has really been around here for years and years and has faltered more than it. There's a risk involved.
I'm just looking at the schedule here for next season. It was unveiled right around the expansion draft. Balanced. Your thoughts on the schedule for next year? There's the Olympic hole in it. Are you hearing anything about NHLers in the Olympics, Sean? What A, and B, do you have a take on the schedule and the balance of it here for 2021-22?
Well, it feels to me like it goes pretty deep into April. So we already know that we're not going to be entirely back to normal next year in the playoffs, and probably wrapping up a little bit later than the middle of June than we typically do. Or they're really going to push the players to stick to a schedule to get through that and try and get back to a normal summer next year. And if they do that, I mean, it's going to be a third straight year of players getting, pushed into the playoffs and really go to make it work. So, I mean, that could definitely have ramifications, especially by the end of the year next year. The season starts a little bit later, not as late as I thought as it would have. So again, the players not getting as much of a break as I would have thought they would. I think if you're to look at this and you're going to be tired, and if you're one of the players, and if the players do go to the Olympics, if you're one of the players not going, you may not be so upset about getting almost all of February off in the middle of the season and taking that little bit of a break. I mean, it looks open to me for the players to be there. I fully expect the players to be there. I want them to be there. Best on best tournaments, like I said, doing shows like yours or just talking with people on the internet, for the most fun exercise of being a hockey fan is building the best on best rosters and comparing them with your buddies and arguing who should be, the fourth line center on Team Canada, because they're just so deep, and it's that way all over again this season. I mean, I want to be on your show talking about that with you. I want to be doing my show talking. I want to be chatting with fans about it. The NHL and the hockey world, I think, is a better place with the players in the Olympics. And if you're Canadians, especially with the rise of all the other hockey countries, I take a look at the rosters and I still see Canada has the most dominant hockey roster. I think that's going to be changing in the years coming up. So we need to capitalize on the dominance that we show depth-wise hockey players while we still can.
My favorite is province by province rosters. I'll see you,
I love that.
Eberle, Getzlaf, Hayden and Cale Fleury, Braden Holtby, Braden Coburn against whatever the best Manitoba has to offer, and we'll beat up on Alberta. I really love that discussion too. But Sean, listen, warm up Winnipeg for us. We'll see you in a couple days, and I appreciate the time today.
You betcha. Thanks for having me, Rod.
Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet Winnipeg joining us.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.